Hi, everyone. Welcome to Turning Point Stories and Strategies from the World of Business. I'm your host, Blaine Birch, co-founder and CEO at Dryrun. And joining me today, I'm really excited about this. I just met Per Sjöfors maybe about a week or two ago, and had such a fascinating conversation with Per that I had to have him on the show. Per comes from your company, Sjöfors Partners, but he's known as the price whisperer. And that's what I found so incredibly intriguing. So we will work up to that point as we work through this. Per. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, and thank you very much for having me on the show. I'm excited about this, Blaine.
I really appreciate it. We had such a good conversation. I kind of wish I would have recorded the last one we had. Before we get into why you're called the Price Whisperer and all the interesting, stuff that you've been working on for a number of years here, I'd like to circle back to like where you got started in business and sort of a little bit of that lead up to what you're doing today. Where did you start and what were you doing?
Well, first of all, as you may see from my wacky name and accent, I'm originally Swedish. And I got my first CEO job late. I was 30 years old, and I established a company, and I moved from Sweden down to Switzerland and set up a company there with money from an investor, and built that for a few years. I was then really bought over by my main competitor, which happened to be a Japanese company, and I ran their subsidiary out of the UK for several years.
So what was that company that you sort of built and exited from? What exactly was it?
Well, both of these companies were selling electronics. They were distributors of electronics, specifically to professional electronics. So not consumer goods, but to industry basically. And okay. It was actually in that very first company that I started to do some experiments with pricing, and I started to learn about pricing. Because what I learned about business school was useless. It was so academic and so theoretical that it didn't help us. And my first teaching in that learning in that very first company was that we came in and we were way underpriced. And we sold through distributors in all European countries, and they saw this as a tremendous opportunity to sell at market prices or sell at very high prices compared to us. So they made a lot of money, and we were kind of struggling because the policy was to come in low, and that was the wrong thing. But it was a mistake I learned from,
Well, it's a battle that, so many businesses face. I know, even in my first business, even now, we're always talking about pricing. And it's such a challenge because it's scary when you have to have money coming in the door every week and every month.
Sure.
You got bills you got to pay, you got staff you got to pay. You need money coming in. And it's raising prices is kind of a scary thing to do because you never really that comfortable with how the market will respond. And I know we never brought into the level of sophistication I think that you have, but I do remember fast forwarding a few years. My last business was a creative agency, by the way, and fast forward a few years. And I do remember at one point, this was as unsophisticated we just kind of said, unless we're losing 30% of our bids that we likely believe is on price, we're charging too little. And that was kind of what we went with, because at one point we were winning every bid, and you kind of going, we shouldn't be winning all of them, right? Like there's something kind of wrong here.
Yeah, it reminds me of a friend of mine was also having a service company similar. It wasn't exactly an agency, but it was something similar. And they couldn't make the company make money. So he and his co-founder, they met over lunch and say, why don't we just double our prices? We have nothing to lose. We're going to go out of business anyway if we don't do something. So they went back and they doubled their prices, and lo and behold, their sales volume increased 50% too.
Oh wow! We've doubled our price early on with Dryrun when we were more of a direct to business product, and that just a different model. There's a lot of differences, but I know we doubled our price. I remember two times specifically where we literally doubled our price and then hung on and to see what happened. and nothing. People just kept buying the same, like
Yeah.
exact same thing, but
Yeah.
it put us in a better position. So I've seen that, and I know now looking back, like if we had some really much more sophisticated and much stronger pricing thoughts in the creative agency I had, we would have been significantly more profitable.
Yeah.
You just like, you realize at some point you look back and go, man, I left a lot of money on the table and it was my own fault by not knowing what I was doing.
I think the importance is that people don't well, first of all, let me tell you this. I mean, just just the other day I got a call from a client that we worked with several times, and they had just acquired a company, and they said, this company hasn't raised prices for 9 years. I mean, wow. And this is, I hear this all the time. CEOs I speak to, they come in and they say, no, we don't dare to raise our prices, not even a percent, because then all our customers are going to flee and we're not going to have a business anymore. But that's not the way it is at all, So that's one thing. The other thing that people tend to forget is that if it's the resulting profits that drives your business.
Yes.
Higher prices means higher profits, means more money you can spend on marketing, more money spent on service definitions or sales or product development, more money spent on becoming more competitive.
Yes. Yeah. One, profit is, like we've talked with customers before, like our at Dryrun, we're talking a lot about, cash flow, financial modeling for operational finances. But we're always talking with them about profit. Like that is something you can't get around. We always say revenue, profit, and cash flow. It's like you have to have the three, and it's one will kill you overnight, and that's a lot of times cash flow. And then profit could be death by 1,000 cuts, because it could take a long time, or you have money coming in, but it's not
enough.
Just eking down. And it's amazing talking with so many business owners that we talk with, and sometimes we uncover issues with profit that is amazing. And I do remember one, they were a service business, and they were doing like plumbing, but they also did a lot of like big stuff, but they had a small arm that was kind of doing their residential. So the big ones, they were making a lot of money off of it. They just kind of, I don't even know if they had calculated it, but they were making good money off of that. And what they found was they were losing money on some of these small ones because they were small and it was a residential job. They kind of thought, we'll just charge this. It seems like a lot of money, until someone actually sat down and did the math and went, we're losing like $100 every time we do a call. And and they'd done this, I think, for quite a long time. They just had never put the time into it. And it was just like, it seemed simple and it seemed small, so it didn't matter. And then over a year, you just lose a pile of money. Like it made no sense.
Yeah, you touched upon something that again, very few companies think about, and that's the commoditization death spiral. Where you start by typically having very similar messages and very similar prices to your competition, and you don't differentiate yourself in any way. And because you don't differentiate, you end up selling on low price, which saps your margins, which means you have less money for development, you have less money for marketing, which means that your margin, your ability to price further is diminished, and eventually your company is on life support and probably going to die. Instead of looking at, because that's something I'm always trying to find for my clients, is how can we differentiate you in such a way that you gain pricing power? What is pricing power then? Well, actually, this is something that Warren Buffett said. He said that the most important criterion for investing in a business is whether that business has pricing power. And then he continued to elaborate by saying that, and pricing power is the ability to increase prices without losing sales volume. And that's,
Mm.
of course, what we all want.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
It's a simple message, but a really fascinating way to look at it. Right.
Mm-hmm. But it's something that people, and there's another thing that I encourage every listener or viewer to this program to do, and that is to do a very simple calculation. And I call this the 1% challenge. So you take your total yearly or monthly, whatever is available for you, your total cost and your total revenue. And profits, I mean, profit comes from only three things. It's your total revenue, it's your total cost, and it's the price of what you sell.
Yeah.
So you do that little calculation of how much your profit is, and gross margin, and then you add 1%. And if you're like you add 1% of revenue, meaning the same thing as increasing prices 1% or decreasing discount with 1%. And if you're like an average company, that is going to add between 10 to 15% on top of your existing profit margin. Mm-hmm. And the challenge, the 1% challenge is, have you ever failed to change anything 1%?
Yeah.
Yeah. 1 little percent, teeny, and it has profound effect on that margin, that profit that drives your entire business.
Yeah. It's some of the things. Well, with Dryrun, we do the financial modeling and stuff. I'm playing with this stuff all the time. And you're looking at growth rates. You're looking at the the number of sales you get and the pricing, and those three things is like you kind of outlined. That's kind of your revenue. Like that's the magic. That's where 99% of it happens, right there.
Yeah, exactly. And something. And if you think about it, if your entire company, or certainly the management level in your company, have this 1% challenge in their minds, suddenly giving away 20% discount to a customer is not going to happen to close a deal. You may still give away a little discount, but it's going to be a lot less. There's going to be people going to look at this and say, can't we inch up these prices a little bit? Can't we and there's a whole slew of things you can do. You can say to your salespeople, from now you can't give away 10% to close a deal. You can only give away 7%. Mm-hmm. And the same with the sales manager. You can't give away 20%. You can only give away 12. Etc. And so forth.
Yeah, and over let alone over a month, but over the year, it's going to make a massive difference to your revenue, to your profit. Absolutely. Because you're giving away profit. That's exactly what you're saying. Like, assuming that with a discount, you actually have some profit margins still built in. You're giving away your profit. And there are definitely, I guarantee you, there are times where they're out discounting the profit margin, and you're losing money on that. And those are, like early years in my agency days, those were some really hard lessons to learn. Was at times when we would bid on something, and we would have but we would, you kind of bid, and it's all, the problem was it's like you bid if everything goes perfect, and then you have a profit margin on there.
Yeah. Well,
nothing in the history of Earth has ever gone perfect. And so then you calculate afterwards, and there's times just like, we lost money on that. And there's like, we priced it that way. We took the scope creep on. We did this what we shouldn't have been doing, and we lost money. And every once in a while, you get some really big wins, and those are the ones where you go, "Oh man, yeah, this is when you price it right and you sell it right and you have the right messaging, you can do a slam dunk here." And you need more and more of those.
Yeah, it's sort of funny. What made me start my own company and get into this pricing is, I mentioned earlier that what I learned in business school and so forth about pricing was so academic and theoretically it was useless. But the the one thing that made me take the jump and take the interesting pricing that I have and create a company and a process around it, was that I did a stint as a CMO of a data storage company. They were making these massively scalable data storage systems for big data centers. And the way pricing was done in that company was that what we tried to do was to get a sort of sense of the price per gigabyte of disk drives. And then we had published, we managed to get and I was not in charge of pricing there. This was we had a strategy officer that did pricing. And then we tried to get a competitor's price list, and sometimes we got a last year's price list or the international price list from one, and GSA schedule for one, and it was all over the place. So then you have a very incomplete picture of what other people are pricing. Mm-hmm. And you take that, and then this guy who was doing pricing was saying, and we're a little bit better, so we add a fluff factor based completely on gut feel, okay? Yeah. And then they send out the salespeople to take every deal at any cost.
Yeah.
There was 65 million invested in VC money invested in the company, and investors got 9 million back in the bankruptcy sales.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's and it is it's a little bit too often where it's the left hand not talking to the right. And I think if there isn't some real discipline and structure in place, you can go down the wrong path so quickly.
Absolutely. And this is so I'm called the price whisperer, not because I invented it, but because I was called the price whisperer so many times.
Yeah.
And the one of the things that I see and what I hear often is that it's like I have some kind of magic power to magic wand, whatever, to come up with an advice on pricing. But that's not at all how it is. It's about process and science and data. It's not about guessing. It's when you're guessing, you are guaranteed to leave money on the table.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing. The other thing that is so important to remember is that whatever price, that pricing power that Warren Buffett talked about, and whatever price you have, it's how should I say this? Your ability to charge higher prices is a result of what you do in your company. Mm-hmm. How you market yourself, how you position yourself, the quality or lack thereof of your product or services. So everything affects how you can price. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest mistakes is that folks see pricing divorced from everything else you do in the company. I also speak to a lot of startups, and they, what I hear all the time is, oh, we're just going to pick a price and then we do some A/B testing. Well, the point is you can do that. The point is that your marketing messages is going to affect how much you can charge. How you position yourself is going to affect it. The features and functions of your product or service that you push in your marketing is going to affect that, and so forth. So you end up, say you're going to test 5 price points, 5 marketing messages, 5 positioning statements, 5 different features and functions, 5 different sales methodologies, 5 different pricing structures, and so forth. And you end up with 10,000 combinations.
Yeah.
It's not going to work.
And for a startup where you're trying to get anyone to pay attention to you, you don't have anywhere near the volume to do probably the first 2 tests and have some useful data.
Yeah.
So,
So yeah.
so how do you, you know, obviously no like secret sauce things, but I doubt that you're just really understand the process or anything, but in a sort of a ballpark sense, how do you go about figuring that out? Like for, especially if it's like a business or a channel or something or whatever that you don't really know that much about. How do you figure that out as an expert? Like you were telling me the other day, you've done, what was it, 700 and some of these engagements, I think you said.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you've done a few. So.
done a few. And you know, it's been anything from stem cells to shovels to enterprise software to pet food, and you know, it's been all different things. But so what happened here is that, you know, I mentioned the companies in Europe that I ran, and then when I moved here to the States in the mid-90s, since then I've been also running a couple of companies and one division of a fairly large public company. And because we did experiments with pricing, and again, some of those were very successful, you know, type next quarter revenues are up 25%, and others were real disasters. But when I decided to start my own company, I said there must be a better way, and the better way is a process, is to cut out guessing, cut out cost plus and stuff like that. And the process that I developed is based on understanding willingness to pay. And once you understand willingness to pay, you can model sales volume at different price levels and revenue at different price levels. And there's a couple of things that comes out of this, actually three things of importance. First off, if you price yourself too low, that price itself sets an expectation of inferior quality, so people won't buy it. Mm-hmm. And we have all been there, you know. I said, yeah, I like to buy this gadget, but at this price, it can't be any good, so you don't buy it. Now, there may be other people who say, oh, this is a bargain, I'll buy it. But for me, I'm a lost sale, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I've oodles of stories on how people increase prices and see increase in sales as well. Mm-hmm. The other is that, and what follows from that conversation is that there's always a price that generates the highest sales volume.
Yeah.
And that is the price where you have the minimum number of people saying that this is so cheap that it can't be any good, and the maximum number of people saying this I can afford. And I'm saying people here, but it works the same way in business to business. Yeah. The other is that the price that generates the highest sales and the price that generates the highest revenue is never the same.
Yes.
So when you have this data, you can say, okay, for various reasons, I want to maximize my sales volume because I want to take advantage of the network effect, for example. Mm-hmm. In other cases, you may want to say, I want to maximize my profits. So I price it, and I don't care so much about the sales volume. And the third thing that you get is, which is extraordinarily important, something called price walls. These are psychological price points where small price changes can make for a very significant change in sales volume. And just to give you an example, about 2 years ago, I spent some time with a VP at one of the big computer companies. And he told me that they had taken this one model of computer and they inched up the price just for testing $1 at a time while carefully looking at sales volume. And they found that they could go up $17 without any change in volume at all. But if they went up $18, sales just fell through the floor. So they had found one of these price walls. And it also meant that they were leaving $17 on the table for every computer they sold. And that adds up when you do 10,000 a day.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I imagine, like, just probably opening a can of worms here a little bit, but they got up to $17, $18 or drop off the floor. But then, as you've sort of mentioned, maybe there's actually an opportunity on the product side or on the marketing side or a value add side to maybe get them over that hump and push that wall back. I suspect,
absolutely. Absolutely. There's another story I have. This is one of our reoccurring customers used to be brand president at one of the big three automakers, president for one of the brands. And this is a long time ago. So, but he was telling me the story on how back when the Ford Taurus, if you remember that, and if viewers remember that, was the family car. It was priced at $18,000, and it was so ingrained in the minds of the market that four-door family car should cost no more than $18,000. So none of the automakers could. Once they get over 18,000, sales just died off. Until Ford came up with a souped up version of that Taurus, which I think was called the SOH or something like that.
The SHO, I remember that car.
Yeah. And what happened was that every time a buyer or potential buyer of these of this Taurus went to a lot to look at it, they were also exposed to the $24,000 price of that souped up version. And over a period of a couple of years, that price wall at 18,000 becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. So after about 3 years, the automakers could start increasing prices over and above those 18,000.
So the Taurus SHO made the industry probably billions of dollars.
Oh yes, absolutely.
That's amazing. I've never heard that story. I do remember the car though, a bit of a car buff, and so I do remember that car. That's just fascinating. I'm just trying to wrap my brain around that, but it's fascinating. Yeah.
But you see how that works and there is within pricing something called the anchoring effect, that you anchor a price to something. And when we are being presented with prices of what we are to buy, again, consumers and business to business is the same. If the first price that we see becomes an anchor, meaning that the consequent prices we are being exposed to is compared to that anchor.
Yeah.
And if the anchor is a high price, what we then consequently see becomes more affordable.
Yeah.
Which is why if you have you have a website and you have different products or services, you should always start with the most expensive one.
Oh, you're hurting me, because I think I'd read that somewhere at one point, and I had the highest to lowest on our pricing page, and we had it there for probably a year or two, and somewhere along the way we just sort of got beaten down of nobody does it that way. What are you guys, stupid? And we finally flipped it, and so now it's the lowest to the highest. But now you're making me think that's a bad idea, that we should flip that around again.
You should, and there's other things you should do. You should, if you can, I mean, I don't know the legality of it. If you can, you should remove the dollar sign or make it very, very small.
Okay.
Because then it's not money anymore. It's just a number.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if I have no idea if it's legal or not, but small is legal. Yeah. I'm sure that's fine.
Likewise, you should not have the comma at 1,000. You should remove that. And
okay.
for the same reason, suddenly it's just money, and it's not this is X number of thousands. It's easier for us to make a decision when we don't really realize how much it is.
Interesting. It's amazing how far and like for a big company with a lot of sales, these minor things could make an enormous amount of money. But even for a business like ours, it could make us money, right? So that's
Absolutely.
a really.
I mean, this is something we did. We have developed some piece of software that we talked about price walls, and price walls happen almost all the time, not every time, but almost all the time on even numbers. You know,
Okay.
50, 100, 1,000, you know, that kind of stuff. And we actually developed a piece of software that if you give us a price list, we will go through as a CSV file. We'll go through that, and the software automatically moves all the prices to where those price walls most likely are. And I'll tell you that it really bothers me when I see somebody selling something for $1,009. You know.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, we when we first started this, I was in contact with a manufacturer of, they do components for it's network component for industrial use, you know, Ethernet switches and stuff like that, but hardened so they can work in a factory environment. We just went through the top 5 SKUs for this company. The process took less than 3 minutes and added $158,000 to the company's bottom line every month.
Oh man, unbelievable.
Yeah.
So here's a question. So if you're pricing something like $99, and then the next level up is $199, is there a place in the middle that even like that makes sense? Like, is it, you know, like you said, like 109 doesn't make sense, but would 129 or 139, 150 probably doesn't make sense. But is there a space in there that makes sense?
If we're talking, if you have a price wall at 100, you probably have one at 150 and one at 200.
Okay.
Now and this is also actually important. You can price yourself at $99.99, okay, and $149.99. But if what you're selling is something unique, something that has a unique value, which is you know, far away from a commodity, and you want to message your unique quality, is going to be 100, 150, and 200.
Oh, interesting.
Because when we look at $99.99, the message that I get as a buyer, and we all get as a buyer, is that this is a company that is trying to use pricing and not unique benefits as a main decision driver.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So ending in 99 is, you know, like I just assumed that's just what you do. That actually might, for like a company like ours, could very well be the wrong approach.
Well, if you're selling commodities, research have shown that if you price on the 9, a customer's spend can go up with $20, 20%. Not that they're buying 20% more of that product, but that they buy other stuff, so the total spend goes up.
Yeah. Okay.
But again, these are for commodities or commodity-like products or services. If you have something unique, you want to message that as you know, pricing becomes that message of quality. And this is you know, this is sort of funny. These theories, if you like, was first now there's an academic field called behavioral economics. But these theories were first coined in the second half of the 19th century, and it was one of the guys, the guy called Veblen. He looked at how companies buy supplies this was in the 1890s or something, and he just found that if these supplies were too cheap, they wouldn't buy them, you know. And likewise, obviously, if they're too expensive, they wouldn't buy them. So there's this point where you have the trade-off between not too cheap and not too expensive, where you have your maximum sales volume.
Yeah, and I think oftentimes the danger is worse when it's too low versus too high, because if it's too low, you can't sort of recover. If it's too high, you can negotiate down. You can't negotiate up, right? Like you've already like sunk yourself.
You know, this is I do speak to a lot of startups, and one of the things I always recommend them, and I tell the story of how especially if you have a product or a service that is in any way disruptive, when you sell to when you have a disruptive product, you sell to early adopters. Mm-hmm. And early adopters care a lot about a lot of things, but they don't care about price. The flip side, of course, is that there's always very few early adopters. So what happened here is that if you start up, you have a disruptive product, and you go to market, and you see nowhere near the sales as you expected. So you look at the bank balance, you look at what you promised your investors, and panic comes in. So you lower the price, and what will happen? Sales either doesn't change at all, or sales go down. And then you can't recover, and then you die.
Oh, that's that's so interesting. That's you're kind of making my head spin here. But it's have you wrote a book?
Actually, what I'm in the process of doing as we speak, I got my manuscript back from the editor, and I'm on the way to go through the whole thing, and I think I'm on page 120 out of 300 roughly. So all of this is in that book.
Oh, that's I'm would love to read it, and you know, the thing, like for you, you're passing the knowledge, but you'll end up with more people buying from me, because once they have the knowledge, they know how important it is, they'll come to you and buy.
Yeah, well, you know, the publisher here says that after reading my manuscript, says that you're going to make some real money here. Yeah, you know.
How much are you charging for the book, and how did you determine
that? Has not been established yet.
Okay, so I'm sure you'll have a quite a long conversation with the publisher about that, because you'll know exactly what to do there.
Well, but books, you know, have reference prices.
Yeah.
Okay. And you know, we have to be a little bit cognizant of where those reference prices is. That's also another. Do we have time for another story?
Absolutely. You can talk all day, and I'm going to listen to you. This is great. I find it so fascinating here.
One of the things that, and this is also something I hear from companies a lot, that, oh, we are going to build an app and then we're going to get rich. Okay. Yeah. Now apps have very strong reference prices. Mm-hmm. You know, they're either free or freemium. They're 99 cents or $2.99 or $4.99. Yeah. And you got to stick to those reference prices. You can't be somewhere else. You can't sell an app for like $49. You know, it's not going to happen. Yeah. We did a project a couple of years ago for a company who sells training services to really, they sell it to parents, but to ensure that their kids get better scores in school, SAT scores, and the ability to go to college and so forth increases. And the same training expressed on the website led to 4 times the willingness to pay compared to if it's expressed on an app. Okay.
I can see where the connection is there, because the apps have been interesting, because my first I've experienced this because in my creative agency, when the recession hit around 2008, 2009, we had to do a complete change in our market, go from government contracts over to corporate. We had people sitting idle while we basically made this transition and got our sales going, and we were quite successful at it, and it actually worked out really well.
Yeah.
But what we did look at is, I thought, how else can we generate revenue? Well, it happened to be about the same time that the iPhone came out in Canada. It was about a year behind the US. I thought, we're going to make a mint off of this. So we made a bunch of apps and made very little money. But there was one app that we led in the category in Canada. We couldn't get up in the States. We led the category in Canada, and we were pricing it at like you mentioned, we were pricing it $4.99. And at that time, everything was 99 cents. And we just were this weird whatevers. But me, already dealing with all the stuff in spreadsheets and looking at cash flow and sales volumes and all this kind of stuff, looked at it and basically went, I'm out. Like, we would never be able to sell enough of these bloody $4.99 things. And even if you got to the top of the category, they were buying once. I couldn't get any more money out of them. And then you couldn't sell a subscription to a guy with an app. Like, it just did not work.
Yeah.
And so, fast forward a few years, and as I started to look at, solving the problem that we're solving with Dryrun, it was very much, it's not an app, it's a SaaS product, because we have some, and it was a hard lesson. But I still remember how fast that dive to the bottom came in the App Store. Because when Apple first released the App Store, that wasn't the price. They didn't really have a model there, and you kind of price it whatever you want initially. And it dove to 99 cents it felt like overnight. It wasn't, but it felt like overnight. And it doomed it. It doomed that sector for so much, right?
I don't exactly, I think there's less than 1% of all apps that actually make money. And because again, you sell, especially when it comes to advertising supported apps. I just read that chapter in my book, but I think it is that even if you get, the CPM is so low that even if you have 100,000 downloads, it's still like $250 a month.
Oh, that hurts. I know, like even selling at a premium price and leading the leading our category in that. It didn't take long for me. I'll be honest with you. I never calculated it, because I know, I just like, there's no way we're making our money back off of this thing ever. And we had a bunch of other apps that we made, and they were fun and they were cool little apps, and we learned the hard way. And we like a lot of businesses, those were all hard lessons for me to learn, but it was a bit of the, if I build it, they'll come mentality, and a pricing model we were pigeonholed in. And it was just like, no, I'm out. This is not a recipe for success, right? I mean, the way to do this is just what you said. You build a SaaS product, and then you give away a free app. Exactly, to support it. Exactly. Yeah. That at some point, like, it's in our roadmap, and that might come at some point, but it is exactly that. It's to support the app, and there won't be any purchasing even through there. It's just literally a little window into the data that we have. And
I'm thinking about another company. I shouldn't say the name, but they're a multi-billion-dollar company. They do a data data recovery service of some kind. And I know I spoke to, I think it was the VP of sales or something like that, and he said, we have these problems that people are complaining about our prices all the time, and I looked at their pricing page, and it says we are cheap, we are dirt cheap, we are cheaper than cheap, we're cheap again, and then came the price. And of course, so I mean, I was on the phone to this guy. I said, why do you think people are complaining about your high prices? Because you set an expectation that is going to be really, really low. Yeah. And then when they see it, it doesn't matter what it is, it's still too high.
Yeah.
Well,
Instead of
just change your change your page and you're going to be fine.
yeah, set your expectation. And then I'm going to have to relook all our pages now too, but set the expectation that you're a premium product.
Yeah.
And price it as a premium product, and anchor, like you said, as a premium product, and we'll switch. But those are all things that are and at times as an entrepreneur, it's a bit, like you said, it's a bit counterintuitive because there's a little bit of fear there.
Oh, there's a lot of fear.
Yeah, but I've seen it all myself. I've seen it in this company. I've seen the agency I had. Like I said, if you were underpriced, you're done. And they'll probably never come back for another bid from you because you're seen as low value. And so we always have to be seen as a premium price, as a premium service, and price accordingly. And then I always tried to, I don't know what you say about this, but I know I've sat in, sometimes multiple meetings with the same company, figuring out where their price sensitivity was. So that we didn't come in too low and we didn't come in wildly too high, so that we had room to negotiate, and assuming that would fall into like this size. Like I said, we didn't have the most sophisticated pricing. It got more sophisticated as we went, I suppose, but it was a bit of that cost plus. And then I would say, and now we're looking at the value pricing element. What can we do this for, but what would they value it at? And trying to get that them to blink first was just a dance all the time. But every once in a while, you would at least get some insight into what they're thinking, which at least gave you some data back, right?
Yeah. And what we do in my company is that we do, we do online surveys to measure just that. And very different than what a market research company would do, even if we use some of the same resources. There's another funny thing with this, and your price also selects your customers. And the story here, we did a project for a company who has a phone system in the cloud, and we found that they were extraordinarily underpriced. So they could actually quadruple their prices, which they did, not overnight, but over, I think, a 6-month period.
Yeah.
And when I checked in with the CEO, he said, well, we quadrupled our price. We, as a result, our sales volume went up 25%. But more importantly, he said, we got a completely new set of customers.
Yes.
And to use the term, the very technical term he used, he said, we got rid of the bottom feeders, meaning the price sensitive customers. And then he said, and we got a more professional level of customers. So our support cost, he said, has gone down with 80%.
Yeah. It's something I experienced again back in my agency days. Is we you had to claw your way up to the next level, because you had to be able to prove yourself. And a lot of times you had to have, like, if we had an opportunity for a high profile job, we would take it because we could use that, at least the brand and that, to move forward, even if we did it a bit too cheap or whatever, or it was difficult, or timelines. Usually it wasn't cheap. Timelines usually awful. We could use that to take to that next step, that next level. And we would just progressively raise our minimum charge for a new project. And it went from no minimum charge to, by the time I sold that business, it was a 5-figure minimum charge just to talk with somebody to know this might be something useful, but I still wanted them to bring work that would maybe go like multiple projects over years. So you're looking at things in such a different way. But that's how you grow as a company. That's how you grow in profit. And that's how you get rid of those really troublesome jobs that don't make you any money.
Yeah, that's very true. Very, very
so
true.
This was, we're almost up on an hour here, so I know we're going for a while here, but this was so fascinating that I could talk with you for days on this, because it's so topical for me right now. And I'm really looking forward to, let us know when your book is out. I'm going to read it, and then we're going to promote the hell out of it, and everything else here. But How do people get hold of you? Because I'm sure there's going to be some people going to want to get hold of you after hearing this and learn more about your services.
Yeah, unfortunately, I got this weird name, and I named my company after me because I realized that people do business with me and not the company.
Yeah.
So it is Sjöfors.com. But you can always just search for the Price Whisper, and I will show up. And there's actually two Price Whispers. The other is there's a company called Redfin that do realtor of some kind.
Yes.
They have something they call the Price Whisper, which is a service they not longer use, is to you can find out the value of your house. But so you search for the Price Whisper and they show up and I show up. So.
Well, it's a good tip, and we'll definitely have your name in in the post and everything. All they have to do is look at the episode information to find that, and
Cool.
we'll add Sjöfors.com into the content. But I'm also going to, it's SJOFORS.com. So it's different, but it's not like a massive handle. So I'm sure people can find you. So
Yeah, appreciate it.
Well, thanks so much, Per. This was just a really interesting conversation. I'm going to be having a spin around in my head for a while here. Really, really interesting stuff. I appreciate your time so much.
Well, Blaine, it's been a pleasure being on the show, and thanks for inviting me. And to all the listeners and viewers out there, I hope you found some of my stories interesting.
I'm sure they absolutely did. So again, my name is Blaine Burch, co-founder and CEO at Dryrun. If you're looking for some help with cash management, financial modeling, especially if you're advising businesses, if you're a CFO, fractional CFO, or CPA, please come check us out at dryrun.com. We would love to talk with you. And thanks again so much, Per. Really appreciate it. Look him up at sjöfors.com, and he can help you elevate your business and accelerate your growth.
All right. Thank you very much, Blaine.